Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Adi, and today I will be giving you a full tour of my reef tank and filtration room. Since this is the first video ever to feature this tank, I want to take my time and walk you through everything and explain not just what I did, but why I did it, and also highlight the unique aspects about my way of reefing. So let's get into it. So the tank lives in my bedroom, and I've actually converted the bedroom's bathroom into a dedicated filtration room. But more on that later. For now, let's focus on what you're looking at. The first thing I wanted to sort out was the backdrop. I didn't want the tank sitting against a boring white wall for the rest of its life, and I knew that it would be really difficult to paint the wall down the line, which led to my FOMO winning, and I chose to do something about the wall before setting the tank up. So I went hunting for inspiration on Google, and I found a look that I really liked, and then I modified it to suit a reef tank aesthetic by picking colors that, in my opinion, give it an oceany vibe. The wall now completely changes how the whole display feels. The tank's dimensions are 120 by 60 by 60 centimeters, that's roughly 4 by 2 by 2 feet, and it is a custom build by a local builder. It holds around 400 liters or 100 US gallons, and it's made from low iron extra clear 12 ml glass with an external overflow box, and it's Euro braced on the top and bottom. This is actually the first Euro braced tank I've ever owned, and honestly, it's been an absolute game changer. For starters, it's a lot stronger than a rimless tank, which gives me real peace of mind. On top of that, it's nearly impossible to spray water everywhere when I'm scraping the glass, and that's a big deal to me, because I hate getting salt water on the glass. It almost behaves like an oil, so it's really annoying to clean up. And finally, I honestly think that it just looks better. The bracing makes the water feel like a picture frame. I genuinely don't understand why not every tank is Euro braced. I think rimless is just a stupid trend. Holding the tank up is a stand I built myself, and I'll be honest, I slightly overbuilt it, which will be a recurring theme here. To the point where it probably could hold up a car or two if it had to. It's made out of 2x4s, half a sheet of plywood, and leveling feet, which make it really easy to get the tank dead level. The stand weighs about 80 kilos. I finished it with a white, oil-based paint rated for exterior use, so it should shrug off the occasional splash for years to come. Since I was building the stand myself, I could basically pick whatever height I wanted. So I went slightly taller than average with a height of 105 centimeters, which puts the top of the tank at around eye level for me. I absolutely love it, and I'm never going back to shorter tanks again. It makes viewing the tank so much more enjoyable while standing up, and the tall tank is a real breathtaker from across the room. That said, the extra height does come with one trade-off, that being that any work on the tank now needs a step stool or a ladder. And honestly, that just makes me wonder how people with really deep tanks, I'm talking like 90 centimeters plus or 3 feet plus, could even manage any maintenance without basically scuba diving into the tank. But for me, that's a small price to pay. Overall, I couldn't be happier with how the tank and stand came together, and hopefully they'll serve me for many years to come. With the tank and stand covered, let's work our way up. Starting at the very top with the light frame. It's built from 4040 aluminum extrusions that I got from AliExpress. You'll notice two pipes mounted on the top of it. Those act as a counterweight. Because I've got more lights towards the front, the center of mass would otherwise shift forward, pushing the frame back and pulling it off-center over the tank. The pipes, which are full of sand, balance it right back over the middle. The whole thing is hung from two concrete anchors, plus two regular screws for redundancy. If one cable ever decides to give out, which it never will because they are 2mm steel cables rated for like half a ton, I've got backups. You know what they say, better safe than sorry. Now for the lights themselves. As you can see, I again went slightly overboard here. If I cranked everything up to 100%, I'd be pulling around a kilowatt of power from the wall. The main lights are the iPi A8 SEs. I'm not sure if the name is iPi, I have no idea. I think it's read like that. Which are Ecotech Radeon knockoffs at a fraction of the price. I got the blue version because it offers a foolproof way to nail the spectrum. If you keep the different colors at a ratio of 1 to 1, say all colors at 50%, you get a spectrum called AB+, which is proven to grow coral effectively. The only catch is that I genuinely hate the look of blue light. Even with the whites at 100% and everything else at 50%, it still reads way too blue for my taste. So to fight that, I added the iPi A7s, which are the Kessel knockoffs, and ran them at 100% white, green, and red, with the blues down at 10%. They've made a huge difference, and I'm really glad that I already had them laying around from my previous tank. Finally, I added 2 LED bars, also from AliExpress, from a brand called Popular Grow. I went with the daylight version, which mixes blues, whites, and greens, again to help fight the blue from the A8s. I mounted them at a slight angle so they light up the underside of the corals, which matters a lot down the line once the SPS corals start growing out and shading everything beneath it. What really sells these lights for me is how well they've performed to this day. I've had the A8s for over a year now, and the A7s are the very first lights I've ever bought when I got into the hobby about 2 years ago. Both still look and perform like they're brand new. I'm really impressed with the build quality and the performance, especially considering how cheap they are compared to the real deal. If I had to name one small issue with the lights, and I'm not even sure if I'd call it an issue, it's the app that controls them. It's a little unintuitive at first, and there is a bit of a learning curve. But once it clicks, it's genuinely simple to use. And it's not like you're in the app every day, changing the lights and tinkering with them. If you are, you shouldn't be doing that. So it barely registers as a downside. All in all, I really do recommend the lights I'm using. For the in-tank flow, I'm running a total of 6 power heads. On each side of the tank, I've got a Jibao DMP10, a DMP20, and a DMP30. Again, slightly overkill, but I really can't stand seeing stagnant corals or dead spots. The choice of pumps might seem odd at first, and I'd agree. However, I already had these pumps laying around from my previous tank. If I were buying powerheads specifically for this build, I would have probably gone with something like 2 DMP or 2 GMP40s on each side. The GMP40s are the newer version of the DMPs. That said, I'm not disappointed with the current mix at all. They've got plenty of power. What I like the most about my current flow setup is the program I've got them running at. Each pump switches on for a short burst, around 10 to 20 seconds, then switches off for the same duration of time. The result is completely random flow. Sometimes 2 pumps are running, sometimes all 6 are, and at other times every single one shuts off at once, which gives the corals a moment to recover. I found that LPS coral can handle a ton of flow as long as it's not direct and it's not a drafty flow from the same direction constantly. So this setup lets every coral catch its breath while still keeping detritus swept off their flesh throughout the day. But here is the part I really love. Normally, you get a dead spot underneath the powerhead directly, because the powerhead creates a kind of force field that stops any settled detritus underneath it from being swept up. By shutting them off completely and constantly throughout the day, I let the powerheads on the opposing side kick up that settled down detritus off the bottom and back into the water column, hopefully to get picked up by the filter roll. One last detail before we move on to the filtration room. I've hung all of my electrical outlets directly on the wall rather than having them below the stand. This keeps everything looking clean, but more importantly, it's also a safety measure. If the tank ever springs a leak, the outlets are well out of the way, which helps prevent a short. It does make things a little cramped back there, but I think it's well worth it. Now that we have covered everything out front, let's step into the filtration room. Linking the tank to the sump are 3 32mm pipes running straight across the wall. 1 main drain, 1 emergency drain, and a return line. I deliberately chose not to drill through the wall and hide them for 2 reasons. First, there is tile on the other side, and as much as I'm up for DIY, I really didn't want to retile an entire bathroom over a hobby. Second, I genuinely love how industrial the exposed plumbing looks. There is no reason for me to hide it. I think it just looks sick. Running that much pipe does come with two downsides though. It restricts flow quite a bit, but nothing that a big pump can't handle, and I can always go for a bigger diameter drain down the line. The other is that I had to take the door off, so a little equipment noise escapes into the room. It's nothing major though, since everything in there is relatively quiet. For the sump itself, I went with a 90 by 60 by 60 centimeter logistics tub, which is about 3 by 2 by 2 feet. It's made out of polyethylene and it's rated food safe, so hopefully it won't be leaching anything into the water. The one catch was getting it through the bathroom's door. It wouldn't fit, so I had to trim the top down with a razor blade, which is why the walls have a slightly odd shape. It's been performing great so far. For my mechanical filtration, I'm running the large Bubble Magus automatic filter roller. To lower its running costs, I've swapped the original rolls with single-use towels made out of plastic. They are odor-free and free of cleaning agents, though, to be safe, I rinse each roll thoroughly before using it. However, 2 rolls are needed at once in order for the roller to function. With only one, water would leak out of the cut marks and it would never build enough height to trigger the float switch, so the roller just stops advancing. Even with running 2 rolls though, the savings are huge. Each 400-gram roll costs me about $3, so 2 of them still cost me about a tenth of what the original roll would cost. And stacking 2 sheets makes the filter finer, so it's actually pulling more gunk out of the water than before. I'm really happy with it. Next up is skimming. I'm running 2 skimmers. The first is a Red Sea RSK 600, and the second is a Bubble Magus Curve 5 Extreme that I'm using as an ozone reactor. I use the Bubble Magus for ozone because the Red Sea isn't listed as ozone ready, and I didn't want to risk destroying it. The Bubble Magus has been running ozone for over a year and a half now without any issues, even though it's not rated for it. Honestly, I don't like the Red Sea skimmer at all. It's loud, it gurgles constantly, and I've never managed to pull thick, consistent foam out of it. Though, that might be because it's oversized for my system. The Curve 5 on the other hand has been great. It's quiet and easy to tune. The vent above the Curve 5 is there to vent out any residual ozone out of my room. Ozone is a carcinogen and destroys almost anything it touches, especially plastics. So the last thing I want is for it to be floating around my bedroom, plumbing and sump. Both the vent and the ozone generator, which is a Wii Pro 50mg unit from AliExpress, are on a timer and switch on together for 3 hours a day. I don't run an ORP controller, and I don't think I need one because the generator is on its slowest setting and only runs for a few hours a day. I've done that for over a year and a half now with 0 issues. For my return pump, I'm using a Jibao MDP 13000, a 13,000 liter an hour pump that I'm running at 90%, which is exactly what I can drain through a 32mm pipe with the valve wide open. Alongside it, my Jibao NDP 3500 runs the accessories loop, which is strong enough to feed my refugium and UV sterilizer, and it handles my water changes too, but more on that later. Both pumps have been rock solid and put out a ton of flow. The UV sterilizer is a 60-watt NIWA unit. Being this oversized, it really helps knock down fish parasites and diseases. The refugium/algae reactor is about as simple as it gets. I took a bucket, cut a hole in the top, and slapped on a 40-watt LED bulb. And as you can see, it has been growing algae like crazy. Cable management matters a lot to me, so to wrangle the power cords, I ran these cable channels all the way from the sump to my electrical panel, leaving plenty of slack on each cable so I can lift any device out of the water without disconnecting it. There is a fine line though between managing cables and making maintenance for your future self absolute hell. And I'll admit I've steered a little towards hell. Every new device means cutting its cable, extending it by about 5 meters, running it through the channel, and wiring it into the panel. But for the clean look I've ended up with, it's completely worth it to me. The panel itself is one of my favorite things I've built in here. I love how tactile the switches feel and how easy it makes turning anything on or off. Plus, it's watertight, so a stray splash of water can't short the circuit. I've got a second cable channel for all my dosing lines, which runs to the other side where my peristaltic pumps are. The first is a Kamor X1 T2 Pro, which handles my calcium hydroxide drip and doubles as my freshwater top-off. It doses 5 milliliters a minute of concentrated calcium hydroxide solution around the clock. The second peristaltic pump is a Jibao unit that doses my alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium. Through a local chemical supplier, I managed to get 25 kilo bags of food-grade calcium chloride, sodium bicarbonate, and magnesium sulfate, plus 25 kilos of technical-grade magnesium chloride, and a 40-kilo bag of 99% calcium hydroxide, which is technical grade as well. I asked for the chemical analysis on each one, and they all came back relatively clean with only minor impurities. So this whole lifetime supply cost me just $300. Using all the raw material I got, I've been able to replicate Fauna Marin's boiling light, calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium recipes. The only issue was with the alkalinity. Sodium bicarbonate isn't soluble enough to reach their concentration, so I concentrated it using sodium hydroxide, which converts some of the sodium bicarbonate into sodium carbonate. I still do need to pick up Fauna Marin's trace elements to add trace elements back into the water and prevent sodium chloride accumulation. For dosing calcium hydroxide, I built my own reactor by getting a media reactor and a magnetic stirrer off AliExpress. And I put the stirrer on a timer so it keeps everything mixed throughout the day. It's a much more compact way of dosing calcium hydroxide instead of a big tank. For the water changes, it starts with a 220-liter tank, which is about 60 US gallons, that stores my fresh salt water. It sits on a table that I built myself and coated in epoxy for solid water protection. Since I change about 10% weekly, one fill lasts me roughly 5 weeks. Inside that tank is a pump wired to my panel, with a hose coming out of the top. Here is how a water change goes. First, I shut off the main pump, skimmer, and filter roller. Then, I close the pump's valve so it doesn't siphon more water than I intended. Next, I screw this hose's union onto the drain that runs to the toilet and connect the other end to my secondary pump's loop. I close 2 valves, open the water change valve, and send water directly into the toilet. Once the water gets down to the level I've marked, I close the valve and remove the hose. Then, I drop the storage tank's hose into the sump, switch on the pump, and that's it, a 0 bucket water change. I chose not to automate water changes because with the volume of water I'm changing per week and the setup I have, it's already so simple that there is no point in doing that. And honestly, I like to stay in tune with the tank. And that pretty much covers the whole system. It's been a ton of work, but seeing it all run exactly how I planned makes every bit of it worth it. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you for watching.